Alright guys, well we just talked about learning how to figure out the perimeter of an object or a polygon. And remember, the perimeter, if you look up here at this picture of this house with this tree, the perimeter is that outside measurement. It's the outside that goes all the way. Remember, we just add up all the sides. That is the perimeter. That's the outside measurements. You think about it like the fence that goes around a yard. Well, the next thing we're going to talk about is the area. And the area is like the whole surface of the object. So everything that's inside the perimeter, the whole surface inside this fence, that is what we would be calling the area. Let's take a look at this next picture to sort of understand it a little bit better. If you look here, we have this red rectangle. Well, the perimeter is outside of it, that goes all the way around like that, and the area is everything all inside the whole surface that covers the entire inside of this. That's what we call the area, and we measure area in square units. So I'm using this graph paper here to show you what square units look like. And if you look here, so area is two-dimensional. It has a length and a width. The area is measured in square units, such as a square inches, square feet, square meters, square yards, square miles, and so on. And if you look here, the area of a polygon is the number of square units inside the polygon. So the area is the number of square units that covers the whole surface on the inside. And if you look here, you can actually see the square units on this picture here. See these squares in here? Those are the square units we're talking about. If this were square inches, then every side of this square inside of it would be an inch. It would be 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and so on. And so that's what we mean by square units. It's the squares that if we were to sort of like lay them down on the floor like a tile, like if you look at the floor in our classroom, the squares that cover the floor, we're basically looking at the whole surface area of an object and pretending like we're covering them with all these tiny little squares to see how many squares cover that surface. And that will give us the square measurement. And so when we were measuring perimeter, we were measuring in inches and feet, yards. Well, when we measure area, we have to measure in square. We have to make sure that our answers and our measurements are in square. Wow, that is terrible writing, but it's square inches or square feet or square yards and so on, not just regular. And so when I have a graph paper like this, it's kind of easy to find the square units because I can simply look at this rectangle and I could start counting all the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I could just keep going and counting them all the way until I got down to this last one, and that would be 45 squares. So I could say that the area of this square is 45, and let's just say that it's inches, so we would put SQ for square and then IN for inches. Okay? So that was easy. I can say, oh, look, that's 45 square inches, and I can just count all the squares on the inside of it. But we don't always have all these square measurements to count. Sometimes when we're trying to find the area of an object, there's nothing there to count, and we have to use multiplication. If you notice, if you go back to multiplication and you think of multiplication and you remember the arrays that we used, well then finding area is just like looking at an array. Here's a rectangle, and if we look at this rectangle, we can count the squares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we can think of it as that inside this rectangle we have an array that is 2 rows by 5 rows. And so if we just use multiplication just like an array, then we can find out that the square units that cover this surface is you can multiply the length, which is this side, versus the width, and that will give you the square units that covers the whole surface of the inside of it. So if this is 5 inches and this is 2 inches, then I can say 5 times 2, well, this will be 10 square inches. And basically what I'm doing is I'm building an array inside this entire square. Or this entire rectangle. And that's how many square units would fit inside that rectangle. So we relate arrays to finding the area of polygons, such as this rectangle and others. So we take one side of the square or rectangle and we multiply it by the other. We take the length and we multiply it by the width, just like an array in multiplication. So let's take a look at some others. So we go back to that original one I talked about where I counted all the squares inside here. And again, I could count all the squares, or like I said, we can use our, and I apologize, my toolbar keeps disappearing on me. But what we can do is we can take the length to find the area. So the length is down here, it's 9. Here's my length. And I can multiply it by my width, which goes this way. 9 times 5 is 45. And we'll call it square feet this time. So this is 45 square feet. And I showed you earlier, I counted them all earlier in the video, and it definitely added up to 45 square feet. But if I want to find area, we say A, that's area, equals length times the width. Okay? The length of the rectangle or square times the width of the rectangle or square. That's how to find area of a rectangle or a square. And that's all we're really focusing on this year in 3rd grade. So now here I have a blank piece of paper, and like I said before, when you're trying to find the area of an object, like think about the surface of your desk, or maybe you want to find the area of the classroom door, that's a rectangle, or you want to find the area of maybe your backyard and things like that, it would sort of look like the screen does right now. You don't see all those grids or anything, right? So it's not like I can just go in there and start counting the square feet. Those squares don't exist. When we find the square area, they don't. It's sort of unless I'm putting tile on the floor, that I'm not actually going to put squares on the floor. It's just for me to know how big. It's just for me to have a reference of how big something is. So it doesn't matter though, I can still apply the formula of area equals length times width to find what the square unit is. For instance, if I had a backyard that was in the shape of a rectangle like this, and was, let's just say it was 10 yards long, and it was 7 yards wide. Well, I can do length, which is 10, times my width. Why in the world did I write a 4? Okay. Which is 7, and that's going to give me my area. So we're going to say it's 10 yards, so we'll put the Y, YD for yard. Okay, so 10 times 7, well, that's 70. So I would have a yard that is 70 square yards. And what that means is if I had to make a grid in that backyard, I would be able to fit 70 square yards all inside my yard. Okay? Another example could be like your desk. Your desk could be, let's say like your desk was, let's just say it was, we're measuring square inches. So let's just say, I don't know, maybe it's 48 square inches, 48 inches long. Okay? And, no, I don't know. Just for being, let's say it was 10 inches wide, okay? And that's the surface of your desk, and you'll wonder, what's the area? What is the whole surface of my area of my desk? What is that covering? Okay, well, I would just do, again, the area, define area. I do length times width. So I would do 48 times 10. And that would give me 480, and we're going to call it square inches because it's your desk, square inches. So that means if I had all those little tiny square inches, it would take 480 of them to cover the whole surface of our desk. Okay? That's how you find area of a rectangle. Now take a look at this video as we sort of end